Yeah, I mean, I think the goal is just to not look like you in the Houston Rockets uniform.
Yeah.
Is ultimately the goal for us. Like, we don't want to.
It ended for Larry Bird Celtics. It ended for Isaiah Thomas Pistons. It ended for Michael Jordan Bulls, The Last Dance.
Absolutely.
It ended for Tim Duncan and Parker and Ginobili. It always ends.
Hey, man, I never punch down. Draymond's a good player. We're not on the same level.
Charles Barkley doesn't need to scream to embarrass somebody. That's the scary part. He doesn't jump around, he doesn't beg for attention, and he definitely doesn't waste energy arguing with someone he thinks already exposed himself.
Hey, man, I never punch down. Draymond's a good player. We're not on the same level.
When Charles decides a guy is moving out of pocket, he just sits there, lets the room get quiet, and drops one sentence so heavy it makes the whole career look different. And last week, Draymond Green learned that lesson in the most uncomfortable way possible. A four-time champion was sitting on live television, feeling a little too comfortable, and decided to take a shot at Charles Barkley on Inside the NBA, not on some random podcast, not from a safe distance. He did it in Barkley's chair, on Barkley's network, in front of Barkley's audience.
Well, Steve grabbed both of us, and he said, I just wanted to take this moment. Like, I just don't know. I don't know if we'll have this moment again, so I just want to take this moment and thank you guys, and it was a special moment. The first thing Travis said when we walked off was like, man, I'm so happy Steve was in the moment. Like, he didn't miss that moment. But like, going down the stretch, you can't help but think, like, is this it? Is this the...
That was bold, but what came after was even colder. Because over the next 72 hours, this didn't turn into some messy shouting match. It wasn't two guys trading cheap insults. It became something way worse for Draymond. It became Charles Barkley calmly pulling apart the image Draymond has spent years building. No panic, no anger, no extra noise. Just Chuck sitting there, looking him right in the face, and saying one line that made everyone stop playing games. And that is why this moment hit so hard. When Charles finally responded, the basketball world didn't act confused. Fans didn't have to decode it. They understood it right away.
Like, I have an option, as you see. If they don't want me back, I'm not just gonna take the option. Like, this has always been a partnership, right? You want me, I want you, it works out. And so I do think they want me back.
Barkley wasn't just being petty. He was saying what a lot of people have been thinking for years, but were too scared to say out loud. To understand why the response landed like that, you have to understand the room. This was Inside the NBA, the biggest and most respected basketball studio show ever. And Draymond wasn't just popping in for a quick guest appearance. He was sitting at the desk like he belonged there full time. He was sitting among legends, Hall of Famers, real basketball royalty, filling in for Shaquille O'Neal while the Warriors' season had already fallen apart.
But yet you got Jimmy Butler out with a knee injury. You got Moses Moody out with a knee injury. You got Steph Curry out with a knee injury. And we're just free-falling pretty much from All-Star break on.
That detail matters. The Warriors had just been eliminated, and the dynasty that once looked untouchable was cracking right in front of everybody. So when Draymond started talking about a private moment with his head coach before the break, the whole vibe felt loaded. The room wasn't joking anymore. It felt like something was about to slip, and then it did. Vulnerable, reflective, almost tired for the first time in years. That's the version of Draymond Green sitting at that desk. A four-time champion staring directly at the end of a dynasty that once looked impossible to stop. And instead of acting tough, he actually starts sounding honest. He talks about his future in Golden State, the uncertainty around his contract, and the fact that no final decision has been made yet between him and the franchise.
I don't see myself in another uniform, but I am also understanding of this business and know that it takes them to want me as much as I want them in order for it to continue.
For a moment, it doesn't even feel like sports television anymore. It feels personal, real. You're watching a player realize the run might actually be over. And the craziest part is how the room treats him. Nobody's clowning him. Nobody's attacking him. They're treating Draymond like a partner in basketball history, not just another athlete sitting in a studio chair. Then he explains why the season collapsed. 3 injured knees, an aging roster, a dynasty sliding downhill in real time. And somehow, through all of it, Draymond still believes he belongs in Golden State for the rest of his career.
Well, it's over for the Warriors.
There you go.
I mean, no disrespect. But disrespect is no disrespect. Disrespect. It ends for every old team. You have your run, you get old, y'all let Clay go. You and Steph on the backside of y'all careers. It just passed you by. Y'all had one of the greatest runs ever. if you think you're not in the playoffs, you're not gonna make. You think you're gonna get healthier for next year? You're just gonna get older. That's no disrespect. You guys had one of the greatest runs of all time. If you want to compete, you're gonna have to leave there. If Steph wants to compete, he's gonna have to leave there.
That belief is written all over his face. That is what makes what happened next so shocking. Because this was Draymond at his most human, his most exposed, sitting beside a Hall of Famer who has spent over 2 decades breaking down the NBA better than almost anybody alive. That was the setup. That was the room. And that's the exact moment Draymond Green decided to throw a punch at Charles Barkley on live television. Charles doesn't blink. No fake laugh, no defensive reaction. He just looks directly at Draymond and calmly says what almost nobody else connected to the NBA has been willing to say out loud. It's over. Not eventually. Not maybe next season. Right now.
What if they bring the right pieces in?
They can't bring the right pieces. Why? Because they don't have no cap space.
Okay.
They don't have any cap space.
Then Barkley starts laying out the reality piece by piece. No salary cap flexibility, no easy trades, no magical solution coming to save the Warriors. The dynasty that once controlled the league suddenly looked trapped by its own success. And then Charles takes it even further. He starts bringing up names from history. Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, legends who all eventually reached the same brutal ending where time wins no matter how great you are. Charles was basically telling the Warriors they had entered that chapter too. Most players would hear that and accept it respectfully. Maybe nod, maybe disagree quietly, but move on.
It ended for Larry Bird Celtics. It ended for Isaiah Thomas Pistons. It ended for Michael Jordan's Bulls, The Last Dance.
Absolutely.
It ended for Tim Duncan and Parker and Ginobili. It always ends. Sports are for young people. You hope to have a great long career, but sports, nobody wins when they're 37, 38.
Draymond Green isn't built like that. Instead, he looks right at Charles Barkley on Charles Barkley's show and fires back anyway. The energy in the room changes instantly. Everybody feels it. The tension gets thick fast because now it's no longer a basketball discussion. Now it's pride, ego, legacy. And Barkley still doesn't crack. Instead, he calmly plants his flag and doubles down. Twice in the same segment. That's when it became obvious Charles thought Draymond was embarrassing himself trying to score points against him. Barkley didn't rush the argument because he already knew something Draymond didn't. This conversation was never going to end on Inside the NBA. It was going to end when Charles decided it ended.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal is just to not look like you in the Houston Rockets uniform.
Yeah.
Is ultimately the goal for us. Like, we don't want to.
The next morning, Barkley goes on the Dan Patrick Show. No giant studio desk, no panel, no distractions, just a microphone and Charles Barkley sitting there ready to unload. And this is where the whole thing turns deadly.
Wow, Draymond just dissed Charles Barkley on there. Our goal is to not look like you in a Rockets uniform.
Barkley explains that in 26 years on television, he has never tried to make things personal. He talks about situations, basketball, reality, not personal attacks. Then he does something almost no sports analyst ever does. He admits the ugly part himself. Charles openly says his Houston Rockets years at the end were bad. Even playing beside Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, he says he simply wasn't the same player anymore.
Hey, listen, I've always said my last 2 years in Houston.
Wow, they 2 in a row?
He owns it completely. That was supposed to be Draymond's weapon against him, but Barkley ripped the weapon out of his hands before he could even use it. And then Charles delivers the real message underneath all of this. You wanted the spotlight. You wanted the TV chair. You wanted to sit beside legends and talk like an analyst. Fine, but once you sit in that chair, the truth comes with it too.
Well, number one, I don't ever take anything. You can never take personal shots at guys. You know, I've said that in my 26 years. My critiques of every player or coach is only about the situation. He took a shot at me, but I don't get offended because other guys, I've said things about guys, and they took personal shots at me.
You wanted the respect that comes with being an analyst. You wanted to sit beside legends, break the game down, and speak like one of the voices shaping basketball conversations. But according to Charles Barkley, there's one huge problem with that. You can't do the job if every piece of criticism feels personal. That was Barkley's entire point. The moment Draymond heard something he didn't like, he stopped acting like an analyst and started acting like a player trying to defend his ego. Instead of debating the basketball side calmly, he threw a punch emotionally, and Charles saw right through it immediately. Then Barkley brings out the numbers, and suddenly the whole conversation gets uncomfortable fast. 4 straight years in the NBA play-in tournament.
Last time you had me on the show, I told you I regretted those Rocket years, especially the last two, which I sucked as a player. But I wouldn't turn down no free money. I had 2 years. I had 2 years left on my contract.
Not deep playoff runs, not finals appearances, the play-in. That's what Draymond Green was defending while trying to take shots at Charles Barkley on national television. A dynasty that once terrified the league had spent years fighting just to stay relevant, and Barkley wasn't going to pretend otherwise. That's why the next line landed so hard. Charles points out the truth nobody in the room could argue with. If the Warriors were still competing for a championship, Draymond Green would not have been sitting on the inside the NBA set at all. He was only in that chair because Golden State was already eliminated. And then Barkley delivers the line that instantly took over basketball media. I never punched down. One sentence. Calm. Simple. Absolutely brutal. A really good player. Not a great one. Not a legend. Not a Hall of Famer. A really good player.
My issue with Draymond, if he wants to do this, be in TV, is get a sense of humor. He takes everything personally. You were just saying, look, it's over with the Warriors. And now he can't say it, but you were just saying it's over. And then he made it personal with you instead of having...
That line hit the basketball world like a truck because Charles Barkley wasn't yelling when he said it. He wasn't emotional. There was no fake TV drama behind it either. It sounded calm, controlled, almost casual, which somehow made it even colder. An 11-time All-Star and the 1993 NBA MVP looked directly at a 4-time champion and basically drew a line between their careers in real time. And then came the part that really stung. He had a hell of a career, but we're not on the same level. Past tense. Not he's having, not he still has. Had.
The Warriors haven't been relevant for 3 or 4 years. They've been in the play-in. So when you're in the play-in, you're not in the playoffs. You're in the play, and when you're in the play-in, the Warriors been in the play-in, I think, 4 straight years. So they've been irrelevant.
For the second straight day, Barkley made it crystal clear that he did not see Draymond Green as his equal historically. And whether fans agreed or not, people couldn't stop talking about it. Because that's the type of sentence only certain players can say without sounding ridiculous. If a random analyst says it, nobody cares. But when it comes from Charles Barkley, a former MVP with one of the greatest resumes of his era, it lands completely differently. That's when other voices around the league started jumping in too. Former NBA veteran Jeff Teague talked about it on the Club 520 podcast, and his reaction basically added even more weight to Barkley's point.
He took a personal shot at me, but I'm not sensitive. But yeah, it's been over in Golden State. I mean, if Golden State was relevant, he wouldn't be in the studio with me.
Teague reminded everybody of something important. Even during those later Houston years that Barkley openly admitted were rough, the same years Draymond tried to use against him, Charles was still averaging a double-double. Think about how crazy that is. Even the washed version of Barkley was still producing at an elite level. And then Teague brings up the biggest detail of all. Charles Barkley wasn't just in MVP talks back in the day. He actually won the MVP award in 1993. Not a debate. Not a hypothetical, not almost.
Hey, man, I never punched down. Draymond's a good player. We're not on the same level. So I can hear, but I don't have to respond to every time somebody says something about me. Yeah. Hey, Draymond's a really good player. He's had a hell of a career, but we're not on the same level.
The league voted him the best player in basketball, and once those numbers started getting compared side by side, the conversation suddenly started looking very different. 6'4", averaging 27 and 28 a night. Double-doubles almost every season. One of the most unique Hall of Fame careers the NBA has ever seen.
Couldn't talk, that motherfucker.
Real psychos for sure. Okay, Dre putting smut on Barkley's Houston Rocket years, man, average a double-double. He really got to be one of the most underrated players.
That's the resume Charles Barkley brought into this conversation. And once former players started speaking up, the whole debate started tilting hard in one direction. One former player who actually shared the court with both generations basically shut the argument down instantly. Draymond's a rookie. Charles Barkley is Charles Barkley. Then came the line that really summed everything up. I love Draymond, but we ain't arguing that one. No debate, no hesitation, no fake balance for television. Just players respecting what they know they saw with their own eyes. And that's what made this whole thing so brutal for Draymond Green. Charles Barkley didn't need to call friends to defend him. He didn't need social media campaigns or emotional speeches. The basketball world spoke for him automatically because in the NBA, resumes eventually speak louder than personalities.
Oh yeah, it's not favorable to Draymond, brother. Go ahead and put him up, Blue.
Compare the stats.
We like numbers next to each other on here. The numbers look a little different, brother.
I just
Act
want to
like
see.
Barkley won one of them ones now.
Man, you MVP
One of them
now.
ones.
And the truth is, Draymond walked into a fight against a man whose resume is simply louder than his. That's the uncomfortable part nobody wants to say out loud. This is what the end of a dynasty actually looks like. Not the championship parades, not the ring celebrations, not the documentaries years later with emotional music playing in the background. The real ending is uglier. It's older players trying to hold on to a version of themselves and a version of their team that no longer exists. It's the moment reality finally catches up.
Chuck did that at 6'4" too, nigga.
Damn, what the nigga average? 27?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Barkley was
28
silver.
right here.
That
Yeah,
nigga
man.
averaged a double-double his whole career besides his rookie season.
Yeah, Charles Barkley is one of the best power forwards.
There you go.
And in this case, reality looked like Charles Barkley sitting inside a TNT studio, calmly telling one of the defining players of the Warriors era that the run was over and there was no magical fix coming to save it. That's why Barkley's comments hit such a nerve. He wasn't talking like a hater. He was talking like somebody who already lived through the exact same ending himself. He already knows how this movie ends because he experienced it firsthand. And Charles even said it directly himself the next morning during his conversation with Dan Patrick.
Charles Barkley's better than Draymond Green, bro.
For sure. That's
Now,
we're not
goddamn,
arguing that
I
one.
respect that career shit.
What year you
I
had?
love Draymond, but we ain't arguing that one.
That was the part Draymond Green couldn't accept. That was the part he couldn't just sit there and absorb quietly. Because once Barkley said the dynasty was finished, the conversation stopped being about basketball schemes or roster moves. It became about legacy, about identity, about whether the Warriors stars were still who they believed they were. So Draymond swung back verbally at the one person in basketball media you almost never beat publicly, and that's Charles Barkley. Not just because of the resume either. It's because Barkley has spent 26 years on television surviving every kind of criticism imaginable without backing down. He's been called arrogant, loud, wrong, biased, washed, outdated, and everything else you can think of.
And I know he don't want to say it, but, and listen, you know, everybody get mad when I say this. Old people don't get healthy. Old people die, okay? They don't get healthy. The notion that him and Steph gonna get better when they get healthy and being a year older, they're not. They're just gonna get older, Dan. So it's over for Golden State.
And through all of it, he kept showing up and speaking the same way anyway. He's admitted his own failures publicly. He's joked about his own bad years. He's never tried to pretend his career was perfect. That honesty is exactly what gives his words weight when he talks about somebody else. And that's why Draymond Green walked into that studio believing he was sitting beside a peer, but walked out of the situation hearing something completely different. We're not on the same level. That line followed the entire story like a shadow after that. If you think Charles Barkley won this exchange, let us know in the comments. And if you think Draymond Green had a fair point somewhere in all of this, explain why, because basketball fans are still split on it. Subscribe for more NBA stories and breakdowns like this, because these moments are always bigger than the headlines people post online.